Hey guys, Poro here with another video, this time breaking down everything you need to know for MSI 2024. I'll be going over the general details of the event, the format, and a brief rundown of all the teams who will be participating. MSI 2024 will look a lot like 2023 with a few minor differences. There will be 12 teams representing, 2 each from the 4 regions of LCK, LPL, LEC, and LCS, and 1 team each from PCS, VCS, CBLOL, and LLA. Notably absent this time around is the LJL slot. The LJL winners played in the PCS tournament for the 1 PCS slot, and the LJL representative SoftBank Hawks actually made it all the way to finals before exiting the tournament. The tournament will be split into 2 stages, the play-in stage and the bracket stage. The play-in stage will start on May 1st at 4 AM Eastern Standard Time, with the tournament taking place in China. You'll be able to watch the event for free on YouTube, Twitch, or the LoL Esports website. There will also be a number of co-streamers who will be streaming the games themselves. Of the 12 teams participating, 4 of those teams will move to the bracket stage immediately, those being the top seed from the LCK, LPL, LEC, and LCS. The remaining 8 teams will be split into 2 groups of 4 where they will play out a modified double elimination bracket to determine who qualifies for the bracket stage. 4 of these 8 teams will qualify, and the easy way to remember who qualifies is that you need 2 series wins to advance, or 2 series losses to be eliminated. Unlike last year, there will be no cross-mixing of the second place teams in the groups. 2 teams from each group will make it, and that's it. The bracket stage is played exactly the same as last year, which for those who weren't watching, is a completely standard double elimination bracket with the exception of grand finals, which will feature no bracket reset if the upper bracket team loses. Instead, the team coming from winners finals will receive side selection in game 1 as their advantage. If double elimination is unfamiliar to you, just know that you have to lose twice to be knocked out. Now for the teams. I plan on only giving brief rundowns here with enough information that people who have never seen the teams play can jump right into the matches. If you want my actual opinions on many of these teams, I also plan on making team and player tier lists before the tournament starts. Also, before fully getting into the teams, I want to talk a bit about champions. A few pointers to mention is that MSI is being played on patch 14.8, which means a few changes have gone through that you might have seen differently in playoffs in each region. For starters, it's safe to assume that Rel Jungle and Smolder will completely drop off. You'll notice I have neither on any of my player cards regardless of who played them. Rel lost all of her jungle monster damage modifiers, and Smolder received multiple batches of nerfs. Another key to note is that some top laners have Urgot on their champion pool, but it should be noted that this pick really only comes out as a counterpick to Rek'Sai. I also have 2 champion predictions for this tournament. The first of which is that I hope we see Ryze top. Ryze received some nice laning buffs, and with Keen and Robo both at this tournament, it would be a shame to not see a Ryze top come out. The second prediction I have is the potential to see LeBlanc support, as her W cooldown change may be enough to convince some of the ranged support players to see her value in lane as a priority pick. Now let's get into the teams. The LCK number 1 seed is Gen G, who dominated their region going 17-1 in regular season and winning all of their playoff series. Gen G also participated in the last MSI and Worlds, and 2 of the 5 players remain the same in Chovy and Paze. Keenan Lehens from KT and Canyon from DK make up the 3 new players. To many, this iteration of Gen G is the cleanest macro team we have ever seen in the history of the game. Gen G know how to expertly navigate their way through early game with superior knowledge on lane matchups and tempo, and from there they methodically close out games with objective-based teamfights. Of the 5 players on this roster, 4 of them have an argument for being the best performing player in their role in LCK this split, with Chovy having an argument for best performing player overall. The one player who doesn't though is Paze, and many critics of Gen G point to Paze as their potential weak spot of this roster. The main critique boils down to subpar laning phase against top bot laners, which could be dangerous in this tournament due to the 3 bot lane combos that make up the rest of the LCK and LPL. The LCK 2 seed is T1, which at this point should be a surprise to nobody. T1 and Gen G have been the finalists for the LCK in every split since 2022 spring, with Gen G winning the past 4 encounters. However, this T1 roster would take their 2nd seed all the way to a World Championship last season, and they decided to retain all 5 of their players from that winning roster. At this point, most people know this roster by heart. This split hasn't been all smooth sailing for T1 though, as they tied HLE for 2nd at 15-3 in the regular season, and then would go on to be swept by HLE 3-0 in playoffs before bouncing back in the lower bracket to take their revenge on the way to finals. To be noted though are the comments of the DDoS attacks against T1's headquarters. According to the org, these attacks stopped T1 from practicing for weeks right before playoffs started. Whether or not this is a valid excuse for losing to HLE has been up for debate in the community since, but they managed to bounce back either way and took Gen G to 5 games in finals. T1's game plan consists mainly of unpredictability, with games either being won hard early and snowballed to oblivion, or with T1 losing early game but then fighting back to some insane comeback angles. It's impossible to count this team out of a game state no matter how dire. The LPL number 1 seed is BLG, who made one huge roster change for the split, subbing in Knight over Yagao. This change led BLG to a title, including a regular season win over JDG that snapped a multi-year losing streak. Knight would go on to win MVP of the entire split, and they would go undefeated in playoffs, including 2 series wins against the 2 seed Top Esports. BLG boasts the most aggressive early game in the entire tournament, mostly stemming from their bot lane combo of Elk and On, considered by most to be the best bot duo in the world this split. Shun also stepped up to be a confident top 3 jungler in the region. The team also hosts Bin, one of the most well-known carry top laners in the world, although he's been weak-sided for much of the split. With BLG, you can expect lots of early ganks and dives, invades, and constant fighting whether there's an objective up or not. A key staple of this region as a whole is to fight in between objective spawns to attempt to burn key summoner spells before the important objective fights. Sometimes it works like a charm, other times it leads to complete throws of the game. Expect BLG to go for these fights and to win most of them. Top Esports is the LPL number 2 seed, and they have a fairly similar game plan with their bot lane of Jackie Love and Mako showing an incredibly dominant split. Their most ambitious pickup in the offseason was acquiring Cream, the mid laner from the fan favorite OMG Cinderella team. Cream specialized in melee assassins on OMG, but has transitioned well into a more standard pick and control mage player. Tien also returns to another international tournament, although he has underperformed in most of the recent events he has been to. Many people will be looking to label Tien as a choker if he has a single bad game, but Tien has been able to put together a solid few regular seasons, albeit with the egregious Inter 2 every now and then for the past few splits. The big player to watch out for on Top Esports is 369, who continues to just look better and better. Top Esports was projected to be somewhere around the 4th to 6th range in LPL, but 369 has overperformed and dragged his team up to a consistent top 3 for the entire duration of the split. Unlike Bin, who seems to struggle slightly with the current top meta, 369 has adapted very well to the new champions like Rumble, Rek'Sai, and Udyr. The X factor for this team is definitely the individual player's talent, as any player can step up and carry if needed. The LEC number 1 seed is yet another familiar face, as they're sending G2, who is coming off back-to-back wins in both winter and spring split. During this time, they did not drop a single series. The roster is the exact same as last year, and we've been given another year to see the squad develop. The team is roughly the same in terms of playstyle to the 2023 iteration, but there is one big change, which is that Caps is back to being dominant in his role. 2023 marked some of Caps' weaker showings, with even Caps himself saying that he was underperforming in many of the post-game interviews. This season so far though, Caps has come out as the most dominant mid laner in the league, putting up some crazy games along the way. This new resurgence for G2 has a lot of people thinking this is the year they can return to the once dominant international team. However, a lot of people also believe that this is the weakest from top to bottom the LEC has looked comparatively ever, so there's also skepticism that nobody from Europe will perform. With G2, the big trademark to look out for is creative picks, as each player on the team have pocket picks that can make or break a game. The LEC 2 seed is also a familiar name, as Fnatic beat out BDS to secure their MSI slot. The season started off with some question marks as the org let go of their support Trimby, who is considered one of the better Western supports, but they replaced him with Jun, an LCK player who many believed would at least be a side grade. The team underperformed in winter with a 4th place finish, but a 2nd place finish in spring was enough to get the team qualification through championship points. It's worth mentioning that Fnatic beat out BDS in championship points by only 5, meaning if BDS had beaten MAD in winter, BDS would be here instead despite losing to Fnatic in spring. The best performer for Fnatic has been Razork, who many believe is the best jungler in LEC over Yike. This roster also features Humanoid, who has had some great international performances in the past. Overall though, this roster has a lot of doubt surrounding it. As mentioned before, the general consensus seems to be that the LEC looks weak this year, and players like Oscarinen and Noah are not viewed as elite players within their regions. Humanoid has also not performed up to standard, although some still cling to the narrative that Humanoid only turns it up internationally and doesn't care about regular season. Predictions around Fnatic by analysts range from better than Top Esports to worse than both NA representatives. The LCS number 1 seed is Team Liquid, who have made a few changes to their team. With Pioshik back in the LCK, T1 picked up former LCK jungler Umpty as the replacement. Interesting to note is that Umpty was also rumored to join TL last year before Pioshik was locked in. TL also brought on Impact over Summit, who went to the LLA on Rainbow 7. This new roster was not projected to do well, with a lot of 5th, 6th place speculation, but TL showed up when it mattered and won 4 series in a row from lower bracket to win LCS. One of the main criticisms TL faced during the season was APA's limited champion pool. Many teams believed that if they banned out 2 or 3 of his key champions, they would find success. However, with a combination of APA adding Talia to his consistent pool, as well as Impact and Umpty performing above expectations, TL managed to beat out the 2 favorites in C9 and Fly. The LCS 2 seed is FlyQuest, who were expected to win regular season. They defeated TL in the upper bracket semifinals in 5 games, but lost out in finals after TL ramped up through the lower bracket. The team is a combination of big names with a topside of Whippo, Inspired, and Jensen, 3 veterans with decorated careers, and a young bot lane duo with Busio and rookie Masu. The team plays how you would expect, with Whippo and Inspired bringing most of the firepower in the games. The team may be too reliant on these players though, as many say the collapse in finals was partly due to Whippo and Inspired underperforming. There have also been questions surrounding Jensen's play and whether or not he should still be on top teams in the LCS, but he played a convincing series against Cloud9 where he had 0 deaths and held Jojo Pyun to 0 kills. It's not an uncommon opinion to see people have more faith in FlyQuest than TL in this tournament. The PCS is sending PSG Talon to their 7th out of the last 8 international tournaments, so the participation of this team shouldn't surprise anyone. What should surprise people is how they got there. The teams in the PCS this season were stacked with contenders like Frank Esports, who had many of the top domestic talent, or CFO, who built a stacked super team with players like Karsa, Gory, and Sword Art. PSG was no slouch either, with veterans Ozzy and Woody, LPL ADC Betty, and legendary players like Junja and Maple. With all of this domestic competition, the surprise is that PSG's road to MSI included needing to beat the LGL representative SoftBank Hawks twice, once in finals, and the other one being a 5-game encounter. SoftBank Hawks tore through the competition, beating teams like Deep Cross Gaming and Frank Esports, and then beating CFO 3-0 in lower bracket finals. Whether this means the LJL is stronger or PCS is weaker is up for debate. With PCS, you could expect a slow team who wants to punish the enemy's mistakes. Some of their players like Junja, Maple, and Betty have strong mechanics, and the team is great at making snap judgments together when going for plays. PSG can play themselves into a hole though, as they don't go for many proactive plays in most games. When they lose, it's from death by 1,000 cuts. However, Junja and Maple is a scary mid-jungle duo who can work well together early at times, so this team is a threat to any play-in team if underestimated. The VCS is also sending a familiar face in Gam, but with a twist this time. If you haven't heard already, the VCS had a massive match-fixing scandal involving 32 players, and every single one of the teams had players temporarily banned while under investigation. Some teams had their entire rosters eviscerated overnight, but luckily, Gam only needed to sub in 2 players in the mid and bot positions. They still have talent from previous tournaments in Kiaya and Levi, but 2 new subs have question marks surrounding on how they might do. Emo is just 18 years old and only qualified to the VCS this past split, and Easy Love is coming off of an 0-18 record on the last place VCS team this split before being moved to GAM. Despite this, GAM's playstyle in playoffs seem to remain confident. This team won't shy away from early playmaking and skirmishes around objectives. Overfighting might spell their doom though, as the decision making on those fights can sometimes seem to have no reasoning. CBLOL is sending Loud to its 4th international tournament in a row, although it wasn't nearly as smooth this time as last time, as they ended up dropping games to Pain Gaming in 2 separate series. Their roster has one change from their last appearance at Worlds, as Seos left for Kaboom. While Redbird is a good support domestically, this change definitely hurts Loud internationally. The team is still up to their same shenanigans as always though, with high energy and lots of playmaking, and longtime viewers of the channel know that this is one of my favorite teams in the scene right now. You could expect a lot of coin flips with this team, mostly stemming from the top jungle duo of Robo and Croc, who are essentially considered criminals internationally at this point. When on fire, this team can contest and even beat top Western teams, but when not on fire, they'll lose to anyone. One of my favorite parts of Loud is that it feels like you can never truly count the team out of a game. Whether it's Route coming up clutch late, or Robo and Tanones finding game-winning engages or flanks out of nowhere, the game is sure to be entertaining one way or the other. Finally, LLA's representative this year is Astral Esports, and these guys have honestly had it coming for a while. Ever since Jose Diodo came back to the LLA, Astral has been in contention to win every split, just falling short in playoffs each time. However, Jose and company managed to get back to the international stage with a dominant 3-0 against defending champions Rainbow 7. The company in question is also nothing to scoff at. Zothve, I think that's how you pronounce it, played with Jose back in 2023 summer, where they brought Astral to a 2nd place finish, and the rest of the team is rounded out with dominant veteran domestic talents Cody, Snaker, and Ackerman. On paper, this is probably the best roster LLA has sent to an international tournament in recent history, and the R7 roster they defeated in 2 separate best-of-5 series to get to MSI included former LCK players Lava and Summit. While it's easy to doubt the early game macro of this team, the players do have solid mechanics across the board, and they show an ability to step on the gas quickly once given a lead. If they can get through their muddy early games, I could see this team taking some names. And with that, that's all of the teams participating at MSI. I plan on pumping out some last-minute rankings for teams and players, and maybe I'll do a prediction video as well, so keep an eye out for those. I have a Twitch channel where I sometimes talk about esports, so check that out if you want. I also have a Discord server, links to both will be in the description. I also have a Ko-fi page, and any tips are highly appreciated. Bye.